invite Kaushiki today to talk about challenges that exist and stops a person from becoming an entrepreneur in these recent dynamics of Indian startup ecosystem. So welcome, Kaushiki. I'm glad to
You,
have you.
Ankit. Thank you to the ESET of I'm Shillong.
Okay, so Kaushiki, before deep diving into the questions, uh, we would like to know more about your journey when you thought need of creating this uh, platform where you will provide mentorship to businesses and their founders.
Okay, so I'd just go across with Markoknow only. So Markoknow is a community where we are helping founders network with each other, and there are majorly two ways in which we see founders, right? One are the founders who are building some kind of a model where we see them as fundable, where we see that they are they are building a kind of a model which is VC oriented, which is fundable, scalable, and that is one kind of startup. The other kind of startup is the startup which is not kind of which needs some more engagement, some more business planning before they are ready to get funded, before their model is a more fundable model, or they are in a setup where they would be bootstrapping altogether because they are very upfront revenue oriented, and they are not suitable for a funding model but very profitable, very good in what they are doing. So we cater to both the kind of founders, we cater to both the kind of startups. Once we understand that the startups that require funding, we kind of help them connect to the right people. Again, for the startups that do not have such kind of model as of now, there is a huge gap in terms of networking with the right people, in terms of collaboration. So we understand, right, that once a startup gets funded, we celebrate that. Why? Because we know that now they are going to get right mentorship, now they are going to get all the resources handy to them.
Right.
But there is a huge chunk of founders right out there, and they're also solving huge problems, right? Just because their model isn't as of now looking like a scalable model doesn't and should not limit them in approaching those resources. So whether it be resources, whether it be networking with the right people or collaborating and having the benefits of all those things, both the things are something that we are kind of catering to with Markono. Not just that, we are also helping students also, and we are also helping in bringing awareness about entrepreneurship and startup in the right manner, in which we are also helping them understand how this journey is taken, so that it is not a 5 6 years of struggle before you realize that this should have been done, right? Because I've heard this thing, right,
Yeah.
that अरे अगर मुझे पता होता तो मैं ये कर देता, right? So there has to be this thing which we tell them, ये एक information तुम्हें पता करने में 2 साल नहीं लगने चाहिए. That is the idea, that you should be able to get across with the right thing, right mentoring in the time where when you need it the most.
So really like the idea and how you are helping to basically decrease that time span when just because of having some knowledge, it takes an entrepreneur long enough to generate revenue or scale their businesses.
It
So
was also a very personal experience, right? We also understood that, we also understood that a lot of the cases that we studied, backstories of founders, even our own journey, we realized that there is a gap, right? It takes, for the first founders, it takes 3 years to understand that this is something that they need to do. Yeah, please go ahead.
right, right. So first question that comes to my mind when we see the recent changes, what do you think about recent boom in startup ecosystem in India?
Uh, yeah, I think that it's the point where startups have now got their due recognition. It's the time where we are celebrating entrepreneurship in India with so many efforts in the right direction. I think that when you're talking about how this entrepreneurship is, now it's much more into the main media. Right now, it's much more into the, everyone knows about entrepreneurship and startups. I think we have had a lot of startups even in the past. That is why we are getting IPOs, right? So many IPOs are in the news already. But definitely the kind of trend that we are seeing is that due to COVID, a lot of people started, like college students have tried a lot of startups, right? Again, the wave of startup has now come, and because of shows like Shark Tank, pictures, you also must have heard about
Right, right, yeah.
So all these shows have brought the information about entrepreneurship to every level of the country, right? It's not now limited to only metro cities of the country. It's now even going beyond to tier one, three cities, which is something which is very unheard of. I could not have even imagined 5 years earlier that even the uncle and even a maybe a panwale uncle at a particular tier three city can also say ki, ha, they even recognize judges of Shark Tank. So I think this is bringing entrepreneurship at very deep levels. And now there was always a question that I used to get from students that I want to talk to my parents that I want to start a startup, but how should I do that? Now you have a better background to talk about this to your parents at least understand it. There could be a table conversation that can happen that you want to start something like this and this is the way you want to plan things. So I think all this Shark Tank and all the main media attention that startups are now getting is really good for a lot of people to start building startups. And I think startup is one thing that we require in India because we are at the point where we need more job creators to cater to our population and to take the next journey.
Right. So, you are saying that basically the mindset of how people see a founder, like earlier when someone started to start their business, people used to doubt, and but now being an entrepreneur, being a fancy word, it has become, it has gained more respect in the society, right? And that's how the mindset shift has helped in booming this. Okay.
True.
So with lot of awareness, a lot of people are trying to come into this space and start their own venture, but that's not easy. It's a very tough road to cross. And what do you think are the main obstacles that stops a person from starting their own business at the mindset level? Like if I have to start a business, I have to think a lot about it before investing even a single penny. And so at the mindset level and at how external environment, external obstacles, how do you think stops and like from stops a person from starting a venture?
So you have talked about the question in two segments, right? One is internal and the other is external, right? So there are definitely two battles that you fight. First is internal, because it's not cat, right? That your parents are already onboarded. So it's something that is like you have to convince yourself first. You have to convince on your grit and commitment much more before than you convince anyone else. So the first thing that I feel is that even it was the final decision to let go of the things. So opportunity cost of starting a startup could be anything like letting go of a 20-25 lakh per annum package. It could be anything like leaving out your stable settled life, right? So I think the kind of decision and the kind of commitment it takes to take that decision, right, is very very tough, right? I think the mindset that it requires is a lot of preparation, right? The more confident you are about your idea, the more confident you are about yourself. That's the first move that one person takes in if they want to start a startup. So the first mindset that it would require would be, if possible, try to onboard at least few people of your family members. Why? Because I think that you cannot battle you cannot be into two battles at the same time. One is with your family and the other is with the world, right? So if possible, if there are two out of four five members in your family, if two three members could be on your side or it could help you a little bit on the same, that would be great. That's one kind of support that I think that a few of the current family scenarios could offer. The second thing, the most important thing is the courage, right? uh, it depends, like some of the people who know that their job, their package that they could get is really good, so they also the opportunity cost and the amount that you are going to let go of in order to start a startup is the courage that you require, right? So
So you were talking about courage. You can continue. I'm really sorry for that.
Okay, should I go ahead with the past question only?
Yeah, like we talked about the internal thing, how should how do we need to have courage and have family need to have family member on our side. What are the external factors that affect?
See, as I was telling about it, suppose if I'm into fintech, right? And if I'm a fintech startup, my strategy would include a particular pitch deck about competitive strategy and how anyone else could not enter into my segment, right? So the first barrier to entry would be this strategy that the person who is ahead of you has. So everyone, and now this is a very important business aspect, that obviously, someone has a strategy to not let you enter, and you have the strategy to make an entry, right? So both the things are going to be there. So the first thing is definitely there are users who are already using a particular product into the industry. How are you going to change the behavior? Why would someone try a new product? Might be the product already in the market is very mature. Due to maturity, they have a better discount to offer, better a service to offer because of the size of the business, right? So definitely the first the first barrier could be this. The second barrier, if I talk about the general barriers that happens in a startup, would be the most common would be something like money. A lot of people say that money is the first thing that comes to their mind once they have an idea which is good enough, but they are not able to implement it. One very important thing that we have also faced is that a lot of the founders who say that, right, and they say that we have a problem statement like this, and if money is there, then we are able to solve it. If you give them the money, they might still be solving the same issue only, right? So the thing is that it's not the money that solves all your problems, right? Money could solve few of your problems. Your
Right,
business problems remain as it is, right? So funding solves your problem or money solves your problem if your product is good enough, right? Otherwise, you take the money, you still solve the same problem which was anyway beforehand, and then you realize that it was not an issue about the money, right? It was always a business issue, it was always an operational issue. I'd give you an example. Suppose if I'm not able to onboard 20 vendors in my industry, right? And because all my vendors are already tied up with the some other person, and they are able to offer a good discount, a good management to the same. If I raise funding, right? I cannot raise funding beyond what my competitors already have, right? They
right,
are suppose at a valuation of 100 crore valuations, right? So whatever I can offer, even at this point, could not be something the money can solve anyway. Then you again solve this problem, now realizing the fact that money was never the issue, but your own capability to solve the operations was. Now you will bring out a solution that doesn't need money anyway right now as well, and now you're able to tie up with the vendors. So this is also one of the cases that we have seen, we have come across. So one thing is for sure, that whenever you think that all your problems would get solved with money, please make sure, imagine at once that if suppose I have 10 crore in my hand, what would be the solution that I would offer to this particular problem? And if you think that, yeah, money could solve this problem, only then say that, money is stopping me from starting my startup, right? But always think it from that point of view. Apart from that, I think there is also a lot of, co-founder disagreements, right? And interestingly, this happens at a stage when the co-founders don't have anything in stake, right?
right.
So what
Where I was coming, like when you start building a business, it's just not you who can do everything. You need people. You need a person whose mindset align with yours. So how to find right people whose mindset align with our objectives, our goal, our goal.
if you're talking about, I think there are two three places where people interact. One is mentor, the second is co-founder, and the third is your team members, right? These are the three people. Apart from that, there is again investors, but more or less, we have shifted to the mindset where people are looking for money and everything only there. So not much of interaction over there, but yeah, good enough interaction over there as well. So let me come on to the major interaction points. I think co-founder is the highest interaction point that you are ever going to receive, right? So going on to that hierarchy, I'd say that if you are starting and you already have a co-founder, I'd assume the fact that you have certain synergy with the founder, and that is why you got the right co-founder at the right time. Else, why would you won't hire a co-founder, right? And definitely because co-founders should have a good rapport with each other. They should have a tuning with each other. Otherwise, you will fight it off and will just rip it apart, right? So on that note, what I'd say that most of the times what we have seen is that the co-founders had some professional history or had some tuning in their in their setup already, and that helps them, right? That helps them solve the issues, resolve the issues. If there are people who are joining for for a startup purpose only, important is that if you could try something together, maybe any other project or any other professional venture or something, or initially only have something like a vesting schedule in place, that the equity would be committed only once we have achieved together the milestones like that. So this is two of the solutions that generally happens. Mindset and everything, I'd say that there is a popular thing that goes around. One has to be a hustler and the other has to be a techie. This is a very popular setup that happens, hustler techie setup. But even different kind of co-founder pairing has happened, and once you get successful, it just looks like it becomes a case study, a new case study to study. So I think, yeah, co-founder mindset is something, if possible, decide things already in place. Hiring people and getting people of the right mindset with you is also something that once a founder starts initial team, they generally interview them on their own, right? Interviewing them on their own helps people to identify whether the attitude of the person who is onboarding with them, whether it be co-founder, whether it be anyone, is something that aligns with them, right? People have their own tuning with different kind of personalities, the behavior personalities, the other kind of personalities. So
Right.
definitely it does plays a role, and it helps in the long term, right? How you are going to resolve the issues.
So, like right people also determines your capability and your future as in a startup, right? Because if there is a wrong co-founder and the business shuts down, like we have seen examples and recent controversies also in this regard. So, my final question
I think
would be,
on that note, I say that nothing is right or wrong. Only thing that you need to check is how are you going to resolve issues if things don't turn as per the plans. Or trust is one of the factors, and the other factor is resolution of not matching opinions. If these two things aligns, most of the things would get solved. Yeah, please go ahead.
right. So, coming to my final question, there was a survey conducted on around 100 startups, and it showed that 42% of those startups, the product that they had, literally had no market, but they started and they got funding too. But later on, they realized that this has like how founders basically address that the service or product they are offering. Does this even have a market? Like how they should test it?
See, I'm not aware which year this test took
It
place. If you
was
can
in
actually
2019,
2019. Okay.
before
So
lockdown.
how I can see is that how to test whether your product has a market, right? This is one thing which I can say that why investors are now asking for tractions, right? Why not, investors are now asking founders to show that how many products have been sold, how did you sell it, right? And what did the users pay, how many users stayed, right? These are some of the parameters that now founders could also take into place, that yeah, this is happening to my product, as well as investors are actually acknowledging the fact, right? I'll tell you how this solves the major purpose. Suppose if I have a product and I have did a correct marketing to the same. Suppose I showed it to a lot of people and people bought it for the first time. If I show this figure to anyone now, it would look like that I sold 50,000 of my products. So this is a missing data. If I show that out of the 50 people whom I sold my product, 30% of the people, or 60, if the good figure is 60%, if 30 to 60% of the people came back and bought my another batch. Now this is where your product has at least a repeatable value to sell, right? Because first time short could happen, right? And if suppose if the value of the product extends, now the people are coming back with more orders, now it looks like the product had sufficient value. I'd give you an example. So there was one of this startup that I came across. where the person had good figures to show in terms of the product that they were offering and the repeat customer that they were having. It was a good enough thing. So but once digging it down deeper, we understood that the student launched the product entirely in their college, right, and nearby colleges. And because of the relationship over there, the product was being sold on a repeat mode. But what about the colleges where you are not having that kind of relationship, right? We would have considered if there are more colleges that they're able to convince and retain the users, because obviously you have some kind of monopoly or some kind of more favors that you get from your own particular college,
Right.
right? So even these are some of the parameters that now are getting checked, so that we understand that the product has real potentials to offer, and it's not getting any any kind of unfair advantage, right? Which a person might be encountering at a particular location but might not be encountering in other locations, because ultimately if you are building a product, you have to ship it to every area, right? And we cannot test everything in your particular area where you have the dominance already. So these are some of the ways in which product could be tested, and I think retention is one amongst the biggest
Metrics.
thing that, yeah, metrics to understand whether your product is really performing or not, and
Right.
also out of the local areas.